I'd like to reconvene the open session for Mount Diablo Unified School District and ask you to first join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now we'll go to roll call. Ms. Mason?
Here.
Ms. Mayo? Here. Ms. Cowan?
Here.
And Joanne Durkee is here, and Mr. Lawrence is not yet arrived. There's a possibility he won't be able to make it this evening. He's let us know that, so we'll miss having him here. Next I will, and we have our student representative say the children report. You would introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, my name is Hana Paredes. I'm from College Park.
Great, thank you for joining us. Okay, so I'm just going to report out on our closed session. 7.1 was confidential student matter. We provided direction. 7.2, resisting litigation, conference with legal counsel. We provided our attorneys, authority to attorneys. 7.3, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employees. This is actually one case, and we received information. And 7.4, anticipated litigation, conference with legal counsel. We also received information. And 7.5 is negotiations, and we also received information. Thank you. And so now we go to public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. So this is actually a great opportunity for the board to hear from the public. It's one of several ways that we hear from the public, and so we encourage people to take advantage of that. But we want to make it clear that by the Brown Act, we cannot respond or can't get into a dialogue with anybody. We are here to listen and hear your concerns. And so we won't be responding specifically to that. So I just want to make sure you don't get feeling hurt if we're not responding to you. So, okay, so we will start with Carmen Turones Torres.
Good evening, board members, district administrators, colleagues, and Mount Diablo Unified School District community. You all know me. My name is Carmen Turones. I'm also ASME Local 1 CST Unit President. We're here tonight to express our frustration with Mount Diablo Unified School District. As you are all aware, our unit has been negotiating since February of 2018. Our contract expired on June 30th, 2018, and it seems like the administration wants to ignore our contract. We demand to be respected and have administrators honor our contract. Hiring process has changed, positions eliminated without communication to the bargaining units. My members are working out of class without compensation. Administrators forcing secretaries to supervise students with behavioral issues. Lack of communication. My list is long. In October, the district CBO held a meeting with the union leaders regarding the budget. Many questions came out of this meeting, and we were told we will get responses to our questions via email. Well, I got the email last week. 3.5 months later. What took so long? In December, one of Local 1 business agent addressed the board regarding our negotiations. We met in January. This meeting pretty much served as a catch-up because Mount Diablo had changed the negotiating team. Our next meeting to discuss monetary issues is not until February 25. This is not acceptable. There seems to be a misunderstanding on the Janus versus ASME court ruling. It didn't banish the unions. We're still here. It gave us, the employee, the power to choose. And my members have chosen to be represented and to go back to the table and negotiate for them. No disrespect to teachers, nurses, psychologists, and other staff members who provide support to our students. But without classified staff, the schools cannot function. My unit may be small, but we know how important we are at the schools. My question to you is, do you all know how important we are? And if you do, then show the value. Mount Diablo leaders are claiming that there's no money. My question is, what happened to the surplus we had in September? Where did it go? On behalf of all my members, we're asking the district to honor our contract and to negotiate in good faith. Thank you.
Matt Trost.
Hello. I just wanted to get some more information on our Melrose issue and give you an update on my staff that's been working on our taxation issue. And I believe that, I told you she was at wit's end related to trying to convey the status of the property and what developable is. And I think we've moved past that to passing it off to the county planning department or the assessor, making a distinguish about what's developable. And these agencies, because of liability, don't like to put earmarks, labels, classifications on properties because that's not, there's legal ramifications for an assessor to put unbuildable on property. There's the legal ramifications for a planning commission to label properties undevelopable. I did this 25 years ago, like I said. I put the letter to the school board. The school board had the letter, lowered our taxes. Everything was fine for 20 years, 25 years. Like I said, I still don't know what changed it. And I really, really, really hate going to the assessor's office and the planning department in these offices. What I would hope is I could get something out of you all to determine what is buildable, developable. To me, it's reasonable, and I've read Melrose all I could, and there's nothing that says that we have to use the county's interpretation, a legal interpretation. The interpretation in the encyclopedia, to me, should seem adequate to the way the Melrose law was meant to be enforced. And buildable and developable have to mean that you could build on it and you could develop on it. And if it violates the Endangered Species Act, if it violates Clean Water Act, if it violates all these agencies, a simple Google Earth search and simple, instructions from the heads of department ought to be able to cut through so much of this. My concept is that staff lacks direction and doesn't want to make a stand about what is developable. Because technically anything is developable. The moon is developable. But if it's not fiscally viable, to me that means it's undevelopable. And that's my story. I'll let you guys keep working on it. I'll let my staff keep diligently working on it, but I really do not want to go back to the planning department and go to the assessor's office and the controller and the auditor, hire my attorney. It's just so easy to Google Earth now. 25 years ago it wasn't. Underwater is underwater. That simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
I live in Bay Point, so I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard
all I can
because
say.
That's all you can say, Matt.
done.
Okay, Diana Connor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Diana Connor, and I am been teaching in Mount Diablo Unified School District for 25 years. I'm here tonight to advocate for the reinstatement of library services for the secondary and elementary libraries. During the severe cuts of 2008, not only were libraries cut, but so were counselors and sports and elementary music. Libraries are the only one of these programs that has not been reinstated, and it is only one of these programs that reaches out and touches every single student at every school. Not all kids play an instrument, not all kids need a counselor, and not all kids play a sport. But every single Mount Diablo student needs to learn to read and become fluent readers of a variety of formats. Every single student needs the relevant knowledge to succeed in the 21st century and to know the difference, for example, between a website and a database. And every single student needs to discern bias in a text and know what is a valid, reliable resource. Here we are, 11 years later, libraries have not been reinstated and they remain poorly underfunded. The most egregious of cuts are those to the secondary libraries, which have a teacher librarian on campus 1 day a week. Because of this, Mount Diablo is denying our most needy students a safe and nurturing climate to learn on their own, to read, to safely work on homework, and to complete projects. Our school libraries provide equitable access to technology and resources for all students. It is the curricular domain of teacher librarians to teach students how to evaluate information, to examine multiple perspectives, to teach students how to construct new meaning while maintaining a safe, ethical, and responsible behavior online. We do all of this traveling between 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 schools. We do all of this. We research, purchase, process, and push out new books to add to our collection. And we do all of this on days when we see 7 to 9 classes of multiple grade levels. There simply isn't enough time to accomplish the basics of what it means to be a professional teacher librarian. According to the California Department of Education, California public schools with strong library programs outperform those without such programs. I'd read more, but I'm running out of time. For the future success and the health of Mount Diablo students and schools, please reinstate funding for teacher librarians. Thank you.
Alyssa Boris.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Meyer. Last time I came and spoke to you about the positive influence full-time credentialed librarians have on students and on student test scores. I know that major changes will be within the purview of the bargaining team and the budget committee, but there is a change that you as the board can enact now. There's a formula that was created by the board and put into policy that decides how much time a librarian should have at a site. Unfortunately, this formula was created during a different time than the one we are working in now. It took into account that elementary librarians had IMAs, or assistants, that came in and were able to take care of some of the day-to-day operations, such as processing and weeding, so that the librarian on site could potentially see more classes or students during the week. The board also decided at that time that the formula would only allow for 1st through 5th grade classes, along with SDC. The librarians are not opposed to seeing K classes. In fact, when my schedule is allowed at sites, I have taken K classes, though their teacher was required to stay with their class. When the IMAs were let go from the elementary sites, this meant that librarians were required to absorb 8 hours of work per week, per site, without any extra time at their sites. I would love to come together and work with the board to create a new formula that allows librarians more time to see classes and get their operational work done, as well as to fit in K classes throughout our day, but we must have the time to do it. At the secondary level, we would love your support and recommendation to the bargaining committee that librarians be restored to full-time. I understand that this is a big undertaking that will require some financial spending, But when you look at the result of having a full-time librarian, I would think that you would agree that the money would be well spent. The culture of having a full-time credentialed librarian, because of the positive impact on kids and on test scores, is coming to the forefront as we look at what is happening in our state. UTLA just settled their contract, and one of their bargaining requests was a full-time credentialed librarian at every site. Oakland is set to go out on strike, and again, we see full-time credentialed librarians are high on their list of demands or requests. As I spoke to educators around the state at the CTA conferences last weekend, again and again, I heard about how they are clamoring to have full-time credentialed librarians and libraries that are open every day of the week. We have the opportunity to enact these measures now to create a truly destination district, a district where students win because they have access to the tools they need to be successful, and teachers win because they are surrounded by a team of people who can help them enable students to be ready to conquer the challenges of the future. Thank you.
Laurel Burns.
Good evening. 2 weeks ago, I stood before you to explain why the students of Mount Diablo need more access to our libraries. The fact that some school libraries in our district are closed the majority of the week is a tragedy. I also attempted to convey that teacher librarians need more time at our sites to complete the administrative portion of our jobs, which includes the ordering and processing of new materials. You can imagine how disappointed I was when I attended a meeting just 2 days later, at which a principal shared with those of us in attendance that elementary principals have been told by district administrators that teacher librarians and vocal music teachers have quote-unquote plenty of time in our schedules to see kindergarten classes if a site decides it wants to pursue full-day kindergarten. My 3 sites are all currently discussing a possible change to full-day kindergarten. One of those schools is projected to have 4 kindergarten classes next year. I'm currently seeing 22 classes in 2.5 days at this site. And as you may or may not know, Wednesday is considered a full day, even though the students are released at 12:30 p.m. So I squeeze in 7 classes on Wednesday between 8:15 and 12:30. Within my 2.5 days at this school, I have exactly 1 30-minute period when I'm not seeing kids. I'm wondering how I'll be able to fit in 4 additional classes next year. The situation is not unique to me. Contrary to what the administrators at the principals meeting may believe, prep providers do not have plenty of time in our schedules. Even if I could fit in 4 kindergarten classes, when would I have time to administrate the library? Teacher librarians have 2 jobs. We teach our students and we run the library. We need time to do both. Since the inception of elementary prep time, teacher librarians and vocal music teachers have not provided prep for kindergarten classes. Librarians have served kindergarten students in a variety of ways, including story time and checkout time, but the teachers always remained with their students. I have memorandums dating back to 1999 from NBUSD administrators reiterating that library is not a prep for kindergarten. If kindergarten classes are now to be included in the prep schedule, the formula found in the board policy 4113.11 used to determine how many days a prep provider is on a campus must reflect the change. Librarians would love to see kindergarten students, but you need to give us enough time to do so. We are once again looking to you for assistance, and I would like to follow in the footsteps of LA Unified, as they will be hiring 41 new librarians by the year 2020. Thank you.
Angelique Mullen.
Good evening. I'm not going to say too much following my colleagues. This is my 2nd year in the district as a teacher librarian, my 7th as a school librarian in California, and I work at 3 sites, 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school. At all 3 of my sites, time is an issue. I have a cart of books that need to be shelved, always. It's usually full. And I always have a cart or 2 at all my sites of books that need to be processed, that are sitting there collecting dust, basically, because we don't have the time in our schedule to add books to the catalog. If I do takes up to 15 minutes sometimes per book. Sometimes I can knock it off in a lot less time than that. I've even been known to take books home, although they never end up getting done. So there's that issue. There's also the issue of, equity. So when a school only has a librarian for 1 or 2 days a week, that means most of the time the school library is closed. And I'm a resource not just for the students, but for my colleagues as well. Almost on every given day I have a teacher asking me a question. Do I have this book? Do I have that? Where can I find this? Can you order this for me? I have students that come to the library before school, after school, at lunch, and I think we should be available to be a safe place for them to be able to become better readers. So there's so much more I want to say, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine Baker.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Myers. I am here on behalf of our librarians, but they have so eloquently put everything that I might want to say. I'm not a librarian, but I'm a 4th grade teacher, so I get the other end of the spectrum. I can tell you that my kids get 30 minutes once a week, and that's pretty much all they get. Once upon a time, when I started teaching at Mount Diablo 23 years ago, the library was open to students during recess times. So I could send my kids down. We had a couple of passes. We were able to send them down to check out books throughout the week. And now that's not available. The library is open 3 days a week, and my poor librarian, who's behind me, is up to her neck in work that she needs to do. We all are under a lot of pressure, but if I'm supposed to encourage literacy, if we're all supposed to encourage literacy, that includes putting a book in the hands of kids. And I don't have the ability to be able to do that if the library is not going to be open. So during that amount of time that is deemed plenty of time, my librarian is busy processing books, mending books. Sometimes I'm mending books to help her out in my classroom. She doesn't know that. She's managing overdue notices that we don't get very often. So I'm hoping that my students are keeping track of when they're going, and I can't keep track of all of their books and keep track of everything else that I'm supposed to as a classroom teacher. Purchasing new materials. My favorite set of books that our library used to have a lot of seemed to disappear. I wanted my kids to read this great series, so I ended up buying it from Amazon and giving it to the library. It took her weeks in order to be able to process it because she doesn't have any time to do that. She's got to help struggling readers. Oftentimes I have her go in and I ask for her to help suggest books. She doesn't have any time to learn these students, learn what their needs are, to be able to guide them. Running book fairs, challenging the advanced students that we have, working with teachers like me. She's overworked. They're all overworked. And so I beg you to reduce the amount of classes that they're seeing, not increase it, so that they have time to put books in the hands of kids.
Thank you. Lena Anagoyan.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lena Nguyen, and I am the project director of the Northern California Breathmobile and an alumni of Concord High School. I am before you tonight to tell you and community members here about our services and what we can potentially provide to Mount Diablo Unified School District schools in the future. The Breathmobile is a mobile pediatric asthma clinic that was founded in 2009 to help children in West Oakland manage their asthma. From that point on, we've continually expanded our services from schools in Oakland Unified School District, West Contra Costa, and more recently, Pittsburgh Unified School District. We are a completely grant-funded program, so we are able to offer our services completely for free, regardless of a child's health insurance status or documentation status. Our mission is to keep kids in school and out of the ER through our comprehensive asthma plan approach. During our clinic days, we bring physicians, nurse practitioners, respiratory therapists, and a team of healthcare providers directly to the school so the child can maximize their time in the classroom. In 2018 alone, we were able to see 338 children and collectively reduce school days missed by 298 days, reduce ER visits by 281 visits, and our total cost savings, which is an accumulation of an average ER visit stay, a hospital stay, or a school day missed, amounted to $1,839,930. All in all, we are an organization dedicated to keeping kids in the classroom and increasing access to care to those who need it the most. If anyone in the community is interested, we have clinics at the Monument Crisis Center once a month, and we'll hopefully be able to discuss how the Bethmobile will be able to offer our services to schools in Mount Diablo Unified School District in the future. I have a couple of handouts if any of you are interested and would like to meet with me sometime in the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down. Lisa Davis.
Good evening, board members. I'm Lisa Davis, Business Agent for Public Employees Union Local 1 and Chief Negotiator for the CST Union. I wish to take this opportunity to publicly share that we are fed up with contract negotiations that has been going on since last year. Public Employees Union Local 1 demand that Mount Diablo step up in its progress in contract negotiations since it's been going on since February of 2018. We care, so please be fair. Direct all of your district negotiators to settle a fair contract for the Local 1 employees now. Our union members have not had a pay raise since July of 2017, which has left them feeling undervalued and demoralized. We're a part of this community. We're asking for immediate progress and respect for the employees of this district. Negotiations that take this long is truly unwarranted. Our goal, of course, has always been to settle a contract. I have been representing this union and participating in contract negotiations for this district for almost 18 years now, and this is actually an all-time low. The union made its financial proposals when we sunshined back in November of 2017. All of our non-financial issues has been resolved. However, you're now dragging your feet for no reason. Stop delaying progress on important issues and negotiations for a new agreement covering our clerical, secretarial, and technical workers. As always, we look forward to the bargaining process, working through its completion, and a conclusion that can be satisfactory with all parties. So again, board, we are asking that you direct the Mount Diablo negotiators to step up the pace and finalize what we started almost a year ago. Thank you.
Okay, that ends our public comment. And we'll go on to recognitions. One, we have African American History Month resolution. So February has been designated as African American History Month. The Mount Diablo Unified School District also recognizes the contributions of Americans of African descent to develop our nation and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 18/19-36, declaring February 2019 African American History Month, knowing that we teach this all year round, but we're just recognizing it this particular month. Second.
Second, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? And we'll go through both. Passes 4001. Thank you. Okay, so now, always one of our favorite parts of the agenda, we're going to go to student reports. And we'll start with our guest student. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead. I think you go to you first and then we'll, yeah.
Good evening, President Durkee, board members, Superintendent Dr. Meyer, members of the Superintendent's Council, and members of the audience. My name is Hano Paredes. I'm the ASB president from College Park High School. This last week, we just came back from a successful winter week. We had a winter rally this past Friday, which lasted around 60 to 65 minutes. It was a pretty short one compared to our other major rallies. And we organized it. We did a really good job. I think many seniors said that it's the best one they've seen out of all of them. So I was proud of my leadership class. But we had in that rally we had 4 teacher lip sync battle performances. So it was very hilarious. We had Mr. Nolan. He did a Britney Spears performance, so that one stole the show. Everyone went crazy for that.
Videotape it.
Yeah, I think it's on the Twitter, or it's on one of the social medias. But yeah, if you look at our Instagram, we have a highlight. It says Winter Rally. You just click it, and it's like kind of like a summary of the rally. And also Saturday we had the Winter Dance, which was well received as well. So just looking forward to the future. In March we're planning for our multicultural rally. The theme for that is World Cup, so it should be interesting and fun. We're already planning it, no stopping, even though we just came back from an intense rally. And looking forward just to spring is prom ball, our junior prom and senior ball, and as well as spring fling, which we're planning that as well. So that's pretty much it. Also, in partnership with the Rotary, Pleasant Hill Rotary, we are helping them plan grad night for Paradise High School. So we're gonna do I think we're gonna do a dress drive for them as well, and we'll just I'm the president of Interact Club as well, so I'm working with them to see what else we could do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Good evening, President Durkee, board members, Superintendent Dr. Myers, members of the Superintendent's Council, and members of the audience. My name is Megan Chachwa, and I am the ASB president for Mount Diablo High School. It's been a while since I've seen you guys. It's since like November, yeah. So I have a lot for you guys today. So from November 8th through November 16th, we held our annual food drive, one that turned out to be a great success. After our week-long break, school picked up once more, and soon came the Digital Safari Academy Innovation Fair, a semester-long project in which students designed a technology-based patented product, and they had to pitch it to potential investors, a project that I got the chance to partake in. On December 7th, students got to compete in a hilarious volleyball game against the teachers and the staff. Yeah, that was just that. Later that night, Drama held their improv show. The next week after was a great holiday spirit week, followed by our nerve-wracking finals and winter break. Last but not least was our spirit week this month, where students were encouraged to participate by dressing up as their favorite celebrities, to dressing up as themselves during their elementary school days. Sweet throwback. Everyone was wearing onesies, which was kind of awkward. These days led up to a competitive spirit battle between the classes during the rally that Friday, and of course seniors won, so that's all for me today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Who won the volleyball game?
Say that proudly.
Hello. Good evening, President Durkee, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Meyer, Superintendent's Council, and members of the audience. My name is Hannah Genevan, and I am the ASB president from Concord High School, and today I brought with me some friends.
Hello, my name is Robert Santa Maria, and I'm the ASB treasurer at Concord High.
Hello, my name is Leona Timison, and I'm the freshman class president. Okay, so recently at CHS, girls soccer had their senior night last Friday at the Concord versus Alhambra game, and they're 7-7, and their next game is on Wednesday against Mount. Boys soccer is 8-4, and are playing their next game this Wednesday at Mount Diablo High School. Their senior night is scheduled for 7 on February 8th at home. Girls basketball has their second to last game tomorrow against Benicia High School. Their senior night is scheduled for February the 1st at 7 p.m. against Green Christian. Boys basketball has 4 more games left with their senior night on February 8th at 7 p.m. They are 2-4 for the league, but they are determined to finish the season strong. Every year, the Concord High Athletic Boosters hosts a crab feed and raises money for all our sports programs. The money raised pays for tournaments and meets, buses, awards, and so much more. The event will take place this Saturday, February 2nd. Our choir programs are busy. Lady First is performing at a crab feed and Petaluma on February 2nd. Show Choir had a pasta feed this past Saturday, the 26th. They are raising money for their annual tour and that will be during the second week of April. This year's trip will be to Disneyland, where the students will get to record songs and meet Disney legends. The band is preparing for tour as well. They are hosting a dinner showcase on February 9th. This is a huge fundraiser and they are looking forward to performing for the family and friends. In addition to that, they will be competing against other high schools at the Folsom Jazz Festival this Saturday.
So next week we have a lot going on. We have no school Monday, so our Winter Rally Spirit Week and Fine Arts Week will begin Tuesday with a jazz band performance during lunch. On Wednesday, one of the dance groups on campus called 4 Years will be performing in the quad during lunch, and Thursday will be an art show extending from brunch to lunch, and we'll be showing off some of our art programs' artwork. Finally, on Friday, also Rally Day, there will be a music tech concert in the quad as the rally gets let out. In addition to Fine Arts Week, we will have a Spirit Week that all relates back to our rally, which is appropriately themed, Making a Scene, in order to highlight our visual and performing arts. Tuesday will be dedicated to You Day. Students will dress up as someone they would dedicate their performance to, like a parent, family member, or a friend. Wednesday will be rockers versus rappers. Students will pick their favorite and compete for the best costume. Thursday is squad day, so students will either twin with their friend group or do a group costume together. Finally, on Friday, we will be having a black light rally. Each class is supposed to wear white, and their class color are freshmen are neon green, sophomores are neon pink, juniors are neon yellow, and seniors are neon orange. All students participating in any visual and performing art programs will perform or be recognized at the rally. All those activities begin next week, however, we are starting off a little early and hosting our talent show, Concord's Got Talent, this Friday. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. and admissions is free, but clubs and classes will be selling food to raise money for the programs.
Okay, so coming up at the end of February, from the 20th to the 22nd is yet another hectic week. Beginning on Wednesday the 20th is our 5th grade leadership day, and I explained this a little bit last time, but I'm just following up on things. I didn't tell you the theme last time also. So this year we decided to have a solar system theme with the slogan being "We all shine together." So all the students will travel through the galaxy to discover their true leadership qualities, and we're hoping to invite close to 100 kids so we can make a big impact. So far we have about 80. Okay. So following that is our 8th grade day on Thursday the 21st. So the theme is Journey Through the Jungle, where the 8th graders will learn to find their own path as they take a tour through student-run rotations that will guide and advise them through the wonderful programs that we have on campus. We are hosting 400 plus students from middle schools that will feed into Concord High School, so we're pretty excited about that. And for some reason, the board report didn't print out the last thing, so Okay, so finally on Friday the 22nd, we have our 11th annual leadership exchange. A little bit of a spoiler for you guys, but our speaker will be Dee Hankins, our speaker Dee Hankins will inspire us with his story of resilience that helped him get to where he is today. We heard him speak at the CATA camp over the summer that Robert and I attended. It was an amazing experience, and we loved hearing his story of about how he overcame so many things, and we think it relates a lot back to what leaders today have to deal with in their schools and what the hopes that they have for their schools. So the theme we've chosen is resilience. Resilient human, resilient world is our slogan. Leadership students from all over the area will learn to find their strength and resilience in the programs and in themselves. We are excited to host our neighboring schools, and we're looking forward to all the knowledge that we'll gain from student-led workshops and, of course, our speaker. We're also opening it up to students to give their own workshop presentation, so it's not just Concord High students. So you guys should have gotten an email with that information in it. So we're excited to do that. That's all for today, and thank you, and go Minutemen.
The events in February, if a board member wanted to come, what's a good time to stop?
I will send you guys emails.
Okay.
If you want to come to anything, I have a whole list. Okay, I'll do
Great.
that. Thank you so much. And all our students. Oh, shoot. Amelia went to a big talk. I can't too. I'm sorry.
Wait. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to board reports, and we'll start with Ms. Mayo. Ms. Mayo, Ms. Mason, 2M, sorry. That's right. I'm pointing here and saying Mason. Thank you.
Okay. Not last week, the week before, I went to a implicit bias and procedural justice training through Contra Costa County that I was invited to because I represent the district on the Racial Justice Task Force. And then on the 22nd, I went to the Board of Supervisors Martin Luther King celebration that they have every year. And then I went and participated at the County Administrator's Building in the Day of Healing, the live broadcast that was going on. So I did that for that week to recognize Dr. King. And then I also went to the Parent Advisory Committee, which not as many parents as usual, but a good amount of parents there to hear the updates from the superintendent. And I went to the DLAC meeting, which is the same night, where we celebrated the Project to Inspire graduates who were there, which was very nice. They're a very dedicated group of parents. And then the DLAC, as always, ran their meeting just like a professional board meeting and had presentations, and is always very informative. And I think that was about it for me. Yeah.
Thank you very much. On January 17th, I went to the Parent Advisory meeting, and there was a presentation on the budget and a preview of the district's financial status and information provided about the district enrollment. Then the program for the afternoon was smooth student-parent transitions from elementary to middle schools and middle schools to high schools. So there was some information provided as suggestions from our assistant superintendents and faculty members present. And then parents brainstormed in tables about what other ideas that they felt would help make the transition between schools different for both students and parents, because we recognize it's just as hard on parents as it is on students when they move from one school to another. The parents were asked to provide feedback on a CASP video survey. Evidently, we're the only ones in the state that are previewing this particular video about the CASP program, and are going to our input will help develop the video further. And individuals were invited to participate in the facilities master plan survey. It was mentioned about the Paradise events. County board member Mike Maxwell has launched. If you know Mr. Maxwell, everything is grandiose with him. Paradise event. First, he was looking at prom, and another group in the state is interested in working with the prom, though our particular area, Contra Costa County, will gather prom dresses and accessories for proms dresses, and he has a donation of tuxedos for all of the students already. Then we also had a meeting about grad night, and he is meeting with the parents from grad night in Paradise in the next couple of weeks. I think we overwhelmed the community with the generosity and the effort that was being proposed. So we're continuing to figure out what will best serve these students and the families. Because as you know, The students are currently attending school in Chico. Many of the students have been dispersed throughout the state. There are thoughts about how can they bring those students back to participate in the grad night for their class. And then the parents in Paradise would like to have grad night in Paradise. So there's several things that need to be worked out. So stay tuned, and there may be a request for donations. And I know that our community and our county can step up to the plate. On January 22nd, we went to the LCAP speaker series, Above the Fray, and we were reminded there that we need to parent children's online experiences just as much as we parent them in their day-to-day life. Mrs. Khan will talk about the January 23rd event sponsored by Mount Diablo High School on tour, and I attended the Mount Diablo Council of PTA's Executive Board meeting on January 23rd. On January 24th, Medea had an Academy Awards Planning Committee meeting, and currently you should have received a nomination application for you to nominate outstanding credentialed and classified staff, administrators, and parent volunteers, and any agency or nonprofit group that works with Mount Diablo School District, because they're all wonderful. And there's several events that are happening this week. Budget advisory is January 30th at 5 p.m. and then several of you are attending the Contra Costa County School Boards Association presentation on the governor's budget at Alfredo's at 6 p.m. If any members of the public are interested in attending, please contact me and I'll make sure that you are included. Thank you. Ms. Pound?
All right. So yes, the January 23rd event was organized by Mount Diablo High students from the IHTA Academy, and it was over the course of a few weeks actually with a professional spoken word poet who came in and mentored students, and they had a whole spoken word contest, and the winners performed at Todos Santos Plaza on January 23rd after a full day of service cleanup of the school and the city in conjunction with the City of Concord, the MDUSD Education Foundation, Mount Diablo Resource Recovery, and I believe there were a few other partners as well, California Football Academy. Anyway, it was really a fantastic student-led, civic pride event, and I hope that our district continues to find ways to celebrate Martin Luther King with days of action like that. So hopefully it'll be even bigger next year. So a couple other things I wanted to mention. One is I did attend a meeting at Cambridge Elementary School that was run by the city because they had successfully received funding for Safe Routes to School. And it was really exciting because they had all the maps up. And I tried to print out, but these are on my Facebook page as well, but printouts of the proposed draft. So there's a crosswalk right across the street from Cambridge Elementary School where they're going to put in, they would like to put in the flashing beacon where you press the button and the lights flash right there across the street from the school, which is great. And then they're also looking at a bike lane on Victory Lane. And now is the time for public comment. So if you or anybody that you know lives in the Concord area near Cambridge Elementary, it's open for comments, and they're hoping to have it go into construction this summer. So that would be really great before school starts. So I also wanted to share that with our Spanish-speaking families as well. So a friend helped me translate this, so bear with me. Me gustaría compartirles maravillosas noticias para todas las familias de Concord. La ciudad de Concord va a instalar luces intermitentes en el cruce peatonal de la escuela primaria de Cambridge, al igual que letreros para protección de ciclistas en la calle Victory. Para más detalles, por favor vean estos mapas en Facebook. So also, one thing I wanted to share is that I think we've mentioned this before, that CSBA has fullandfairfunding.org, a website that talks about our state funding situation of education. And what I'm excited about now is that there is a handout on that website where you can actually print it out and carry it with you and then bring it to your legislators and talk with them about how our state really is still behind in funding education overall. We're the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world, and we're in the bottom 10 in terms of our funding per student. And so that's part of why it is such a challenge for us as local school boards to fund all of the wonderful things that we really want to pay for in our schools. I too want to encourage people to make nominations to the Academy Awards. So the deadline for nominating is Thursday, February 28th, and there are paper forms, but you can also reach them quickly online by going to the foundation page. Thank you, Linda, for posting it there, and it's mdedf.org/events. And on there you can just click the nominate button, and anybody can nominate anyone for these awards, so go crazy. And then at the event on May 9th, everyone who's nominated is listed in the program, and it's just a wonderful celebration of all of the wonderful things happening in our schools. I also wanted to say, don't forget the town hall meetings that are coming up for the Facilities Master Plan on February 12th, 19th, and 20th at the different locations, each different high school feeder pattern as well. And the dates are on the website. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention a few community questions that have come to me over the last couple of weeks that I would love to see, some action on, and maybe some reporting back to the community in these areas to keep people informed. One is a question about the Measure J committee timing and process. I know that was reported on in our last school board meeting, that first Measure C will be closed and then Measure J will be created. But I think if we can put that out to the community in some other ways aside from school board meeting, that will be helpful. And also questions continue about math curriculum planning, in particular for elementary school. So the more that we can do to engage and inform our community on those topics would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I won't be redundant. I know, it's okay. It's not so bad, actually. But yeah, but I did, on January 15th, I had the opportunity to accompany Dr. Meyer to a school services presentation on the governor's proposal for 2019-20 state budget and K-12 education. So it was the first look at the proposal, and it's important that people understand it is a proposal, and so it's going to go through a number of renditions between now and May, where we'll put out the final proposal. But it was very, very interesting to hear. We got a big binder. I think it's interesting to hear as many presentations as we can. You hear a lot of the same things over and over again, but sometimes different organizations presenting. It can maybe have a little different twist. I'm involved with an organization called Family Economic Security Partnership, and I'm going to be attending one of their meetings this week to hear their presentation. I think it's someone from the state budget, California Budget Project that's going to be presenting, so we'll see what they have to say. I did attend the Parent Advisory Committee. I was so impressed with a lot of things that I think the staff did a great job in facilitating, presenting. I was taking notes. I am a proud aunt of some young kids. I always say my youngest brother is an old dad, so had kids later in life, so we've got these young ones in our family, and so around that age of middle school, and certainly watching my brother and his wife deal with social media challenges, etc. And how to help with the transition was Parent Advisory. So it was really great information, and also great to hear parents really grapple with it. So it was really impressive. And also attended the speaker series, which was different kind of approach to social media, starting out with body image, and what particularly this gentleman, the presenter, has 2 daughters, so you can see why he got very interested in this issue and the impact of social media on resulting body image. So it was also very, very good, so thank you. And I just want to say that I want to thank our colleagues, my colleagues, for your participation in and patience with getting a date set for we're calling our board workshops, a governance conversation. We did it 2 years ago. I know as a new board member at that time, I found it really, really helpful, and so we're going to do it again. And it will be a chance for us to talk about how we work effectively as a team, and also how we work effectively with the superintendent, who is part of our team, and with staff. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, it took a little doing, as you can imagine, to get it set, schedule, and time. But we got one, so we're good. That'll be on February 13th from 9 to noon, I think, in this room, right? So that's it. Thank you. Okay, so we turn it over to our wonderful superintendent for her comment.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing all of the things that you've been working on, all so different, but really kind of working towards the same goal. So it's wonderful to hear a lot of activity going on. And the students, I'm looking at Hannah because I know she's going to help with Paradise. And Paradise did experience an overwhelming response where they said, stop helping us. Because we're like, yes, we're going to get this, we're going to get that. And Mr. Maxwell was really, he's still very excited about that. I wanted to share, these are 2 young men who are very proud of the work that they have. They participate, they're standing in front of it, and some of their progress in their speech classes that they take. So I just love this look, and that's a great photographer there at one of our elementary schools. As mentioned in every board meeting, I want to go back to why we're here. And we talked about the importance of serving our students and how it really is a moral imperative to do what we do, to prepare our students within the classroom and outside of the classroom every day, and to make sure that that they have every opportunity and that all doors are opened and no doors are closed. So I wanted to share that again. And looking at our instructional program, we've heard tonight from speakers, it really is varied, and students enter it in a variety of different ways in a variety of different places. Also wanted to share, in the topic of inclusion, there was some great news that we received these last few days. And this was NBC Bay Area News and Northgate High. They have something that I wanted to share with the rest of the community. So.
Acts of kindness are not something you add together.
Tell me the number.
No, kindness definitely multiplies.
9.
A lesson 16-year-old Gus Exapolius might not think much about, but is certainly living proof of. Gus, you see, lives with Down syndrome, and for much of his life, kept to himself, kept his world small.
I don't want to say the word was shy.
At least that's what Mom Holly and Dad Tom say.
Whenever he got into a crowd of people, he would always pull back. He would never engage. Betty?
But things began to change in Gus's junior year at Northgate High School when the office staff welcomed him in to help them out, delivering notices to teachers.
Wow. Thank you so much.
We're going to go to the science room.
The job took Gus all over the school, into all sorts of classrooms, and Gus's world grew. New friends, a new outlook, and enough confidence for he and his dad to ask if he could be part of the school's basketball team. Coach Ron Pongilinen and his team immediately welcomed Gus as one of their own.
Without hesitation, I was like, of course. I like how we embraced him. Like everyone on the team embraced him.
Gus now has a spot behind the bench during games and in the huddle during timeouts. A scene that not long ago, Tom and Holly couldn't have imagined.
Heartwarming.
It's incredible. I mean, it literally makes me want to cry when I see it.
The result, they say, of little gestures from others making a world of difference to their son.
more than people realize.
You saw Gus there doing the handshake line wearing his sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Tom and Holly say he wears it to bed. He sleeps in it. When he got it, he was so proud of it. And we all know, we've been through this. There are other schools and other Gus's out there where this has happened, where they've welcomed in students. It was just a wonderful example of how that worked so well.
Yeah.
You had a young man who welcomed in by the community of his school. It really transformed his life. And he's a different, more outgoing kid now. And his parents, oh my gosh, so grateful.
He's just one of the guys now.
Yeah, he's one of the guys.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Garvin.
Thanks, Garvin.
I wanted to share that. I got a little as well. And as they said, that is just one of many of our schools that focus on kindness and supporting students. So, as we're going on, it was mentioned here that Project Inspire had their graduation ceremony, and this wonderful program, it trains parents in how to engage in a way around where they are leaders, and there are leadership lessons and lessons on how to navigate and support their student in an educational system, and how to lead other parents. And I believe we have one of the graduates here. Let's see. There he is. One of our ELAC district representatives is one of the graduates, so congratulations to you. So, yes. I believe this is our third or fourth year? Fourth. Our fourth year of doing this, and it's a great program. And many of those who participate in the program have taken offices as either DLAC representatives or other offices on campus, ELAC, SSC, etc. Wanted to also share that we had a STEAM day at Walnut Acres, and students went into the multi-use room and were engaging, and the STEAM materials go from school to school, and many of our schools have signed up and asked for this to come, and we bring it in a truck and put it out, and the students play with it, and many more were really need to know more about it and want to participate. So this just gives you an idea of how they were able to create and have science brought to them, and it's a nice way of kind of reversing the process instead of having them go to a science classroom. Here we have College Now, and Heather Fontanella, our administrator of College Now, is here. They went to Sacramento State and had a tour of the campus. They've had a lot of college tours in the last year, and were also able to sit in on a lecture and participate in conversations with professors, and really have time to talk to students. And so this, we know, is a proven strategy. Let students visit and become immersed in the college campus, and then the first time doesn't seem quite as scary when they're going on their own. So congratulations to College Now for continuing those trips. Also, here we are again. This was DLAC. We had a great DLAC meeting. They recognized Project Inspire. Carmen always has a very well planned and organized team, and our officers. It seems like every year we have such strong officers on the DLAC, and this was also thanking here a presentation thanking the president here of our DLAC for recognizing our Project Inspire parents. Going on as well, we had a lot of different activities. I heard earlier that there were Disney legends and different Disney characters. On the left we have Woodside Elementary, and they had Disney dress-up day. And then on the right we have Mountain View Elementary, and they are getting ready for Chinese New Year, which is coming soon. And a lot of fun things are going on around at all of our campuses. And then the parent advisory, as was mentioned, a good group taking notes on that transition from elementary to middle and middle to high, And what I got out of that was that we have a lot of adults who are really passionate about making sure that when students get to the next level that they're supported, and that we have a lot of students who do that through ASB and Link Crew and other types of welcoming, ongoing kindness activities that really change the culture and make students feel welcome. So I've seen great improvement in that area, and it was already really wonderful. As mentioned, we had the Martin Luther King spoken word celebration at Todos Los Santos, and we had a minister who came from who was connected to our community, who read the speech that Martin Luther King read in Philadelphia to junior high students. And so I thought that was an interesting choice in speeches. I've heard a lot of his speeches, and I hadn't heard that one. It was really wonderful. He was really aiming to inspire middle school students. And you can see I don't know how well you can see in the top, we had our mayor and vice mayor of Concord who were there presenting a check, and to our students. The students there from Mount Diablo High were having service day where they continued the work of Carlin Obringer and Tim McGallion, and they go out every weekend to clean up in the area, and they have cleanup days, so they engage the students in that as well. And overall, it was a wonderful day. They had lunch with zero footprint. So their goal was, through the hospitality organization, to have all of this healthy food, and they left no paper and no trash, put it all into this little teeny compartment and took it away. And just a wonderful morning and afternoon of activity, and there's Ms. Mayo there. And also the foundation was represented by Rachel Levy, who was there speaking to the students about the foundation and how they appreciated being able to contribute. So that was a great day. The spoken word speeches were so touching and heartfelt and personal. They were really wonderful to hear. And then, because we have so much budget stuff to talk about, this is a short one, but this young lady is on her way to school on the left, and she goes to Holbrook, and she wants everyone to know that. So she's got a sticker on her car, and she's pointing it out. And then Northgate soccer, I wanted to show pride in two different ways. And so you can see the beginning, the early pride, and then the later pride. And so looks like they had a good game. So with that, I thank you.
Career Pathways.
Yes, thank you. I would like to invite our Career Pathway team, and they will introduce themselves. And I have to say, I've been to different venues with business partners, and they always want to hear about what kind of career pathways we have. And many a different district, when it's been a citywide or countywide presentation, have gone to Heather and myself when we presented and said, well, how come my child doesn't have that? And then we say, well, they don't go to Mount Diablo. And that's happened more than once when we've gone. And so we're very proud of the good work that has happened, and Miriam and Heather will give you a synopsis of the good work happening with our pathways.
So Board President Durkee, members of the school board, and Dr. Meyer, we want to thank you for the opportunity to just share with you some of the work that we've been doing really in the last 3 or 4 years. Our focus has really been to create a system of support that, because we know that if we create the systems, it's going to be sustainable. And so we really have looked to create a system to support the career pathways in our district, and specifically what we're going to focus on tonight is the work-based learning opportunities that we're providing students, because we know that the more students have an opportunity to engage with work-based learning, the more focused they become in school, the more relevant classes become, and ultimately more successful in their post-secondary. So I think most of you know that my name is Heather Fontanilla, and I'm the administrator in charge of the career pathways.
And I'm Miriam Adelad. I coordinate the Youth Employment Services program that supports our youth who've been disengaged from school.
And so really, if we kind of look at what where the money's coming from the state. We know just the amount of money that they have put into career pathways, that this is a focus of our current state government, and I think it's going to continue to be the focus for at least the next probably 5 to 10 years, and hopefully into the future, because I believe that this is where we need to be focusing. So just in the last 8 years, the state has dedicated $8 million to supporting career pathways. Oh, 800 million, thank you. Yeah, a couple more zeros. Primarily with the California Career Pathways Trust, we were part of a consortium that involved DVC, LMC, County Office of Education, and about, I think, 10 to 12 other school districts. And then also the CTE incentive grant that was issued, that came out 3 years ago, and we're currently in our last year of funding for the CTE incentive grant. So then the question becomes, how do we kind of sustain the work that we've started? There is some additional funding that's coming out that we're in the process of applying for. This round 2 of CTE incentive grant was due on Friday. I believe you guys approved our application for just a little over $1.2 million. And then the other thing, so what they did is they took the CTE incentive grant, which was $300 million, and they divided it in half. So now $150 million is going to the CTE incentive grant round 2. The other $150 million is going to the Strong Workforce Program, and so that has been given to the community colleges. They are in charge of distributing that to the K-12 system. And it's being done on a regional basis. So our region got approximately $29 million, but the region stems from down Monterey all the way up to Mendocino. So it's a very large region. And so when we look at our partner, Community College DVC, we estimate that they have about $1 million that they have to distribute to their feeder districts. And so we're putting together a project because it has to be a project based. So that should be coming to you guys for approval. It's due in March. Another thing that we're doing is we're leveraging the funds that we have available in the district. So, and that's how Mary and I started to collaborate, because she's in charge of administering the WIOA grant. So we use those funds plus our funds plus Perkins. So we really look at all the different sources, and we don't let the funding drive what we're doing. We figure out what we want to do, and then we look for the sources of funds. So I think that's going to lead to more sustainability. And so just looking at the system of support that we've created, so again, focusing on the systems, from a district perspective, we created my position, so thank you. And really what the work that I do is I manage the funds for the grants, but more importantly, I support the teachers in their efforts to create strong career pathways, and I work to develop those community partnerships that are so important to the continuing work that we're doing. And then we've also used some of our grant funds to create work-based learning coordinator positions. So we currently have 3 work-based learning coordinators in the district, and they support all of our schools, including our alt ed site. So that's another kind of priority that we've had, is to be able to take the work that we're doing and to bring it down into our alt ed sites. And then finally is really focusing on building strong community partnerships. We're using them to provide us with input on what skills are needed for future employees, and then also focusing on trying to collect data on what type of experiences these community partners are providing to our students. I think it's important for us to know what's happening. It's also important for our community partners to be able to say, hey, look at the work that we're doing with our schools. We provided this many guest speakers. We had this many job shadows. So really trying to focus on collecting that data so that we can provide it to our community partners, and then we also can analyze it.
And so part of my grant requires me to place students in internships, and Heather and I worked together to develop these work readiness workshops, because we felt that it was important for students to be ready to be placed in internships, and also we feel that we want students to be ready as far as our community partners. For our community partners, we don't want to place students who aren't ready and then have our community partners feel uncomfortable or be upset or something. So we just really want to focus on students being ready. So we initially we created a series of 7 workshops that includes professionalism, teamwork, collaboration, workplace diversity, culture, self-management, resumes, and mock interviews. But we have realized that, okay, so in 2017-18, we had about 99 students go through these series of workshops and receive a certificate. And I know it says Mount Diablo High School, Ignacio Valley High School, and College Park. For Mount Diablo High School and Ignacio Valley, we actually partnered with the CARES After School program, so students all actually received food as well. And that was a great partnership, and they received bus passes to go home. So it wasn't just WIOA, it wasn't just Heather's funding. We are also partnered with CARES After School program. And then we also had students complete the workshops through the College Now program at Diablo Day, at Olympic, and Gateway. So we had one of our work-based learning coordinators go out each week and provide a series of workshops, and then students received certificates. And then there's 235 students who participated in single workshops, and what this means is our work-based learning coordinators might go into a classroom that a pathway or an academy teacher might request a specific workshop for, and then our coordinators will go out and provide that workshop. And as we've had these workshops roll out for the last 3 years, we've actually asked for our community partners for some feedback. So they've looked at the curriculum and given us feedback. So we've now created kind of like a 3-part series. So the first part is getting the job, and there's a series of 10 workshops for getting the job, and then keeping the job is 6 workshops, and then after the job, now what? Is basically career exploration and helping kids transition beyond high school and thinking about careers beyond high school. And although we say get the job, keeping the job, it's really on looking at beyond a job and looking into careers. So even when we place students in internships, we have them create a portfolio, and it includes all these different activities, but a lot of it is interviewing professionals within that internship site and asking them, how did you get this job? What do I need? What certifications do I need? What education do I need to get to this position?
So in looking at kind of our goals for work-based learning, we really want to look at it from a K-12 perspective. So we believe that work-based learning should begin happening in kindergarten. We believe that that's when we should start exposing students to the idea of a career and what are possible careers. Because we know, I have an elementary school age child, and her idea of career, she has no idea what I do. But so her idea is so limited to like doctors and teachers and police officers, right? And so it's really just, here's the whole realm of different types of careers that you might be interested in, and using, more like project-based learning to integrate those experiences. And then in middle school, really taking some time to explore, doing some career exploration. So as part of our CTIG Round 2 grant, we did put in the idea, the possibility of extending Naviance down into the middle schools to start that career exploration with them. And then in the high school, because they've done the career exploration in middle school, they're now ready to pick a pathway that they can focus on. So, it's very slow to kind of roll this out because we need the elementary schools to kind of be more familiar with what we're doing. And I know there's so many other district initiatives. We are starting with the middle schools. we're going to start helping them, like Oak Grove reached out to us about helping them plan their community service project that they have to do by linking them to some of our community partners. So it's some baby steps that we're making right now, but it's exciting to see that it's starting to happen. We are part of a regional initiative called Earn and Learn East Bay. This started under the Career Partnership Trust consortium that we were part of, and it has now expanded to include Alameda County and Oakland Unified. So it's a regional effort to come up with a system of support for work-based learning. And the idea that the messages that we were getting from community partners is they didn't want so many people reaching out to them. They were overwhelmed by the number of requests. And so the idea of Earn and Learn is that we have connectors. So Miriam and I are connectors from Mount Diablo Unified, which means we reach out to community partners on behalf of the schools within our district. And if another school district wants to reach out to one of our contacts, they reach out to us and we do a warm handoff to them. So it's about sharing the information, sharing the wealth, which is great because some people have contacts that we don't have.
And then what is evolving in this is their system, their platform called Elena, that we are going to start, that we have been using to start collecting the data on work-based learning experiences. So to me, this is perhaps the most valuable part of Earn and Learn, is this system of kind of the platform that we're using to enter all of our information. And so you can see, you know, so I'm just going to we're just going to share some of the data that we've gotten out of our work-based learning. So in the 18 months that we've been collecting the data and inputting it into Elena, we've served 7.4 thousand youth in our district just with the work-based learning experiences that we're doing. And then this just gives us some of the top employers. Now, San Francisco State University is not an employer per se, like we're not taking them there for work-based learning, but we're taking them on college visits. And then what we've encouraged our teachers to do in working with our work-based learning coordinators is connect to specific departments. So for example, College Park went to San Francisco State and they visit the BECA department, which is the Broadcast Engineering Creative Arts department. And so it's targeting specific departments on the college campus that's responsive to their pathway. Mount Diablo Unified is one of the top employers. So that includes the workshops that we've done, the internships that we place. We place kids at CARES, we've had kids in TIS, so that type of stuff. John Muir is one of our biggest employers. Visit Concord. So these are all just examples of the employers and the type of data that we're collecting. This gives you information on the different types of experiences that we've provided. And so you can see that, you know, we placed, and this is not entirely accurate, we're still entering data, but 47 students have completed internships. We have 55 community members on our advisory board. So again, it's just about collecting those snapshots of the work that our work-based learning coordinators are doing. And ultimately we want to work with the Earn and Learn director and the operations manager to be able to pull out like for specific pathways. So our digital media, what types of work-based learning experiences are they having? Our engineering, what types? So that way we know where our gaps are and where we have to try and fill those gaps.
So this is just looking at Mount Diablo Unified School District's internships and kind of seeing the progress. So in 2015 we had only 3 interns placed, and it was WIOA funded. In 2016 we had 24 students placed, of which 20 of them were WIOA funded. So these students are receiving minimum wage. They're getting paid for up to 120 hours. And so in 2017 we had 27 students placed, of which 21 of them were WIOA funded, and in 2018 we had 37 students and 22 were WIOA. And our internship hosts for this past summer, we had John Muir Health, City of Concord, Pacific Coast Farmers Market, Family Justice Center, La Clinica, Ambrose Rec and Parks, Community Youth Center, Mount Diablo Unified School District. We had our CARES our ASP program, and also we had in our TIS department we had students placed, and then Monument Crisis Center as well.
And so kind of looking at where do we want to go from here with regard to our internships. We want the idea of a paid internship to be something that we're able to offer, so looking for sources of funds to be able to pay that. But it's kind of like the pinnacle, and we're not going to be able to serve as many students because finding employers to take high school students for interns is always a challenge. And so really looking, and we've presented this to our community partners and they seem to be very enthusiastic about it, but looking for job shadows or mini internship experiences where a student is at a place for maybe a week or 2 shadowing and coming up with a mini portfolio that they will do. And then we're weaving in our workshops into these experiences so that the students are getting some initial career exploration and professionalism, and then it goes a little deeper if they want to go into the paid internship. So really make that paid internship, or if we can't get a paid, an unpaid one, but one that's about 120 hours, something that students really strive for. And I feel like if we make it something that they have to kind of earn, they're going to take it more seriously. But we also want it to be something that all students within our district have an opportunity to participate in if that's something that they want. So that's kind of where we are with regard to work-based learning and the career pathways. Just to kind of give a plug, we do have our best day, our annual best day on Thursday of next week. And so this is an opportunity for teachers to go out and engage in a job shadow for the morning. So our teachers are, and we have a much wider selection of community partners this year because we have about 40 teachers who have signed up to participate, and we're including elementary school teachers and middle school teachers in it, so we're expanding it because of the PLCW pathways that we're starting to develop. And so the morning hours, the teachers are at their job shadows, and then we come back, and you're all invited to come back. We'll meet at John Muir, the Concord campus, at around 12:15 for lunch, and then the teachers kind of share out what they learned and what they want to bring back to the classroom. And so this is, I want to say, Joanne, you might know more, but like 21st year? Yes. So I'm honored to be able to carry on the tradition. And then we have our next Career Pathway Advisory Committee meeting on February 28th, and this will be at Northgate High School. So we're going to hopefully finish our industry skills manuals that we started in September. So I'd like to invite you all to that. So you guys have any questions for us?
I have a couple of questions. I know I tried my best to connect you up with Criterion, which is going to be going back to Shell. They're changing their name again, and Hinkle in Bay Point, and I know on their end there was some glitches. So I was at the CAP meeting on Tuesday night, which is why I wasn't at the speaker series, and both companies did an update on the things they're doing, and I noticed on one of their slides it said looking into pathways for Pittsburgh Unified School District, and I told them, hold on, you're not in Pittsburgh Unified School District, you're in Mount Diablo Unified School District. So they are interested in, at possibly our April meeting, having a presentation. I'm thinking particularly Mount Diablo High School and the engineering, because they hire lots of engineers there and they're always hiring. It's good jobs for local kids. So working through Dr. Meyer, I would like to kind of set something up where you can come out and maybe if they hear all the training that's, because I know they're not really anxious to bring in interns that are under 18, but maybe if they hear more about what we're doing. And
most definitely, and then actually we might know, because we did join in a grant with DVC to create a manufacturing, but where the kids would earn some dual enrollment. So we might know more about that, and that would be an excellent partnership. But most definitely, and maybe get them interested in some site tours or some job shadows.
I thought, if nothing else, if we can maybe get a field trip, so the kids don't even realize, they drive by there every day, that these are good paying jobs. And at that same meeting in April, I believe they're going to have someone from LMC come on, because they have the PTEC program there that they hire from. So
okay,
hopefully we'll strengthen that.
Very great.
Thank you both so much.
Thank
Wonderful.
Okay, we'll now move on to our consent agenda. So items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately.
I would like to remove 14.18, 14.21, and 14.23.
And I would like to pull 14, 15.
15?
Yep. Okay, can I have a motion? Did you have one? No, okay. She's ready.
All right. I'm ready.
Madam President, I move the board adopt the consent agenda with the exception of 1415, 1418, 1421, and 1423 that will be considered separately.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? We'll go to a vote.
So just to clarify, that 14.5 said pulled by staff, so that's not included here, right?
Yes.
On the screen it said pulled by staff times 14.5.
Okay, that passes 4001. So we'll go to,
Okay, are you ready? Full support of this. I just want to, and I'm sure you may be aware, but I wanted to make sure you were aware that now the CDBG program is all consolidated. So they could also go for Pittsburgh funds to fund a program at Delta View if they so desire, or maybe they've tried and haven't been successful, but they can do that as well. So, more money. So yeah, having said that, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 15.1.
second. Okay, first and second. Go with vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you. Okay, 15.2, formerly 1418.
I just had a question on the warrant report, page 31. It says that Clayton Valley Charter, $650,000.
If I could ask Nancy Juner, our Director of Finance. I know currently we have been in litigation with Clayton, so this is a timely question. Nancy?
Good afternoon, or evening, actually. This is the monthly property tax pass-through that we're required to pay all of our charters. So you'll see every month there'll be a transaction for Clayton Valley, as well as Rocket Ship and Contra Costa School of Performing Arts. So even if there's litigation, we still have to pass through these funds.
Nancy, this is their operating money that they receive?
Yeah, this is basically
Via
their
taxes?
state aid. Like we
Right.
get our state aid from the state property tax and such. This is their property tax that just comes through us.
So I move to approve 15.2 fiscal transactions for the month of December 2018.
Second. We have a first and second. With no other discussion, we'll go to the vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you. Okay, so
So 15.3, that was 14.21. Just looking at the positions that are now open, it looks like the Gregory Gardens principal will be open at the end of this year, and also Ignacio Valley Science and Sports Med left their positions at the end of December. So I was just curious what the process is for filling positions that open mid-year, as well as principal positions that are going to be open.
I'm really glad you pulled that, because I would like to recognize Cheryl Colano. I'm not approving this, but they don't let me vote. But very sad to see, this in print. But we thank you for all of your many years, Cheryl. You've done such a fantastic job and continue to do a fantastic job. So the process that we go through to fill shoes that are hard to fill, is one that we've developed that works really well across, and we use the same one for elementary, middle, and high. So what we do is we have one of our assistant soups go to a coordinated staff meeting, and then later we have a very similar meeting for parents and community members. And so in this meeting, what we do is we go and we say, you know, what are the strengths that you see at the school? What are some things that you all have been working on together? What are some qualifications that you're looking for in a future leader? What are some things that you would like to think about that we could grow, you know, and expand upon? And there's a great conversation that's had, and an analysis is done of the campus. And out of that, then also during those meetings, there is a request for those who are interested in sitting on an community interview panel. So oftentimes it would include the leaders of the school, so a PTA president, a PFC president, an SSC, someone who has been involved and already contributing. Sometimes the student is involved. And from there we have a meeting and we take some of that feedback and we put it into the questions. And so if there's a need for a strong special education background, someone who understands preschool, that might be something that they focus on. And so we embed it in the question, so we make sure when we ask, we're really getting at what the community needs to move forward. And then from that meeting, they recommend 1 to 3 candidates that then come back for the second round. And in the meantime, what we're doing is we're going through reference checks, and oftentimes actually we've reversed it, so we do all of that prior to the community. So if there's some kind of concern that we don't have someone who comes to the community who's just, you know, the greatest interviewer on earth, yet, you know, they've been in federal prison or something. So we try and, you know, I'm exaggerating, but what we really do is we try and ask a lot of questions prior, because you really get connected to someone in that process. Then we have the interview, and then from that they recommend, and we continue the reference checks throughout. They come to a council, 5 to 6 staff members that then also have interviews, and they use questions that have come from the community panel. So the community panel sometimes might say, you know, I really thought they did a great job here, but I don't know if they have any background in special education. And so then in that last round, we incorporate questions that elicit that, and because maybe it wasn't on the first round of questions, but they really have that background. So it's a place where you can kind of find those final questions, and then from there we come and we recommend that person to the Board of Education. So as we have positions, regarding the teaching position, I believe this position at YV High, someone received a promotion and went to Northgate High School as vice principal. Is this the sports medicine at YV? And so another staff person that is in a hard to fill position. So we have posted these positions where you see resignations. You also see it. We also have other schools that have had resignations or promotions on that list and on our classified list. And so prior to that resignation, our Human Resource Department has already posted the positions or are actively recruiting for the positions. If we, you know, right now we're having a discussion about if we have, especially a hard to fill, but in general, if we have someone leaving a position, you know, do we want to make sure that we have someone to fill it before they leave? And that's tricky. We don't want to hold people back, but that is something that we're strongly considering, especially in some of our hard to fill areas and in schools that need extra support.
And while we pulled this, I will say I noticed on here one of the people that we hired recently. I hired him when he was a senior in high school to work in our after-school program, and I don't think we do a good enough job of promoting how we have created a teacher pipeline through the after-school program, because I know there are several that I know I hired that are now teachers in our district, and this is something that the state really talked up, and I think we're doing it more effectively than a lot of districts across the state, so we need to brag a little bit about
And
that.
thank you for bringing that up, because oftentimes we'll go and visit and we'll see that we've had someone who's worked in the after-school program, then they've become a teacher. Holbrook, when we were hiring new teachers, we had a lot of teachers there that were part of that, but other schools as well. And then also sometimes they also go through our Ignacio Valley teaching pathway that we have. So that's another way that we have done that. And so now our challenge and what we're trying to look at doing is how do we hook in the universities into that pathway so we can continue through the universities and have them then come back. So we're working on that. We're having those conversations.
Great.
Thank you. It's really good to hear that there's a full community involvement process when we hire such roles, and that we're working hard to fill the positions that are open right now. Thank you. So I move to. For 15.3, right? Yeah. Okay. I move to approve 15.3, recommended action for certificated personnel.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have first and a second. No further discussion. We'll go to a vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you.
That motion was made with regrets.
Yeah.
I'm sure the second was with regrets.
Yes, on my part too.
Regrets on one side, happy on the other side.
Okay. I highly recommend it. It's good. You'll enjoy it.
Okay, last one. Sorry to pull so many, but I have a lot of questions that I think it's good for the community to be aware of as well. So for item 14.23, that's now 15.4, recommended action for classified personnel. I noticed that at Oak Grove Middle School, the office manager and campus supervisor were both promoted to other sites. And so given that we've had a lot of questions about Oak Grove Middle School and its staffing, I would love to hear what the plans are to fill those two positions quickly and with quality.
Lisa, would you like to? Sure. Thank you.
Good evening. The position for office manager at Oak Grove that's been flown, it goes for transfer and then promotion, and that actually closes as of Wednesday of this week. And it's the same for the noon supervisor, or I should say campus supervisor. Both of those positions have been flown, but it's first for transfer, and then it would be for a promotion opportunity, and then we would go outside. So that those should be finished. Both sections of that should be finished by Thursday of this week.
So that means a person would begin the job on Thursday? What does that mean in terms of when someone is in that position on site?
That currently the individuals that are in those positions are transferring to their new positions. Like I think one is going to Northgate. I'm not certain of her placement. I'll have to check on that. But she is when she vacates that position, we go forward with the transfer process. And once we have a confirmation of who's going to be in that position, who wants to transfer, they start immediately.
Right, because one of the dates was today, I believe, the 28th, and then the other was February 1st. So they're happening very soon.
Correct. So we are attentive to that.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I move to approve 15.4, recommended action for classified personnel.
Second. Okay, we have a first and a second, and no further discussion. We'll go to the vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you.
So that it works in the minutes.
Yeah.
So it's given to set.
Okay, we're now at 17.1, district organizations. But I don't think we have any cards, unless there's someone that wants to be spontaneous. Okay, so we'll move on. Yeah. Waiting for us. Just to catch up here. All right, so we're on business action items, and our first one is 18.1, which is a presentation, but I do have a card. Do you want to talk first, Mike?
Yeah, I think I should set the mood.
Can you hear me tonight, Mike? Can you hear me? Are you ready to hear
Apparently
me
he answered
tonight?
your
You were
question,
complaining
so-
last time. Can you hear me back in the corner?
Yes, I just hope I can, you'll be able to hear me, so if you can't, please correct me. I deserve that.
Excuse me, I'm just teasing him because last meeting he complained to me after me, he couldn't hear me when he's sitting back in that corner, so he should move to the front row.
No, you do let us know if you can't hear us though, because the video only gets the microphone, so, but I think they can hear you this time.
Madam President, Board, Superintendent, I was looking at the budget PowerPoint slide 10 on page 5 of the handout. Had to do with our district's priorities. You know, a couple of weeks ago, you had Todd Balke here, honoring him. Did you know that in his first couple of years, he was a earth science teacher at Ignatia Valley High School? And not only did he have to have the challenges of his first couple of years as a teacher, he had a unique challenge that I observed in his classroom. He faced freshman students who had virtually no science education coming into 9th grade. That's because math and language were priorities in this district, in the state, in the seemingly whole United States. And so other subjects that weren't being tested on the, or sacrificed on the altar of constant standardized testing went away. I actually had administrators tell me that instead of science, they would just teach more math. Instead of social studies, they would just teach more language arts because those weren't tested. To me, that was educational malpractice, but they were not a priority. The only priorities were the 2 subjects that were being tested. Those are flawed priorities that hurt students. Teacher librarians were cut from the budget many years ago, to where one day I went to Ignatia Valley High School to meet with a teacher. I was going to meet with that teacher in the library, and the library was closed, and it was told to me that, oh no, high school will only have 1 day a week where students will have access to the library. This has not been a high priority to change, not with management, not with the school board, and not even with the union at times, to fully staff our libraries with these essential educators and trained technological resource. And as we have been getting better, not whole, but better in our budget, they have never reached the priority where we have decided to reinstate them to where they are functioning as they should be as educators for our children. Now we're reaching the end of the cycle where we're starting to return programs. And as we start getting cuts, I'm sure I'm going to hear, oh, we can't add anything more now because now we're having cuts in our budget. I'm assuming that you'll let the teacher librarians know that no matter how much they sell their case, how essential they are, you will eventually tell them that they never were a high enough priority to bring back. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the presentation, Dr. Meyer.
All right, thank you, President Durkee. What we're going to present tonight includes much of the information that we received from the recent governor's proposal. And as mentioned earlier, while it is a proposal, we are hopeful that some of the positive things that we've seen will come to reality. So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce some of the earlier slides, and then I'm going to ask our fiscal team, Rose Ramos and her team, to share some of the specifics. And what we're doing is we have put together a lot of different information. We've gathered as much as we can, so it's a really dense presentation. But we want to put everything we have out there and then come back and keep talking about specifics as we start to hone in into areas where you may have questions. And so we're also using this kind of as a model. While it might be a little too much, we're looking for a model that we can use, that principals can take to their communities, and also a model that can be used in departments and to share across the district. So with that, I told you it would be dense, so I'll do my best. But it is important, and I want to put it out here so we can have it as a place of reference and start as soon as possible. One of the things on the left, we do believe that where we put our money and how we spend our money is an expression of our values. And so identifying what they are, hearing from the board, hearing from our schools and communities is important in this process. And really the development of it involves, as you can see, teachers, administrators, families, community members, students. So what this presentation will have, it'll have some of the key points from the governor's budget. It will have, it will highlight his proposals, Governor Newsom, that is. We will have some specific information to MDUSD, which we're still working through and working on. And we'll look at state funding versus expenditures, budget planning and development, and explain that process. We're also going to look at the timeline that we have, as well as allocations. There are definitely guidelines and flexibilities that we have, but there are also restrictions that we have. So we'll talk about those. And then just resources and information. So I'm probably going to just share a few of the first ones, and then I'll ask Rose to come on up and get to the specifics. So here's some of the information that we received. The economy continues to outperform, especially in California, but the recovery is in its 10th year, and there's fear of a downturn. I have to say, having been to these presentations since '08, they do say that every year. So, you know, you go and you get a little immune to that comment, but we do want to include it because it's important. We also have some more instability in our government at different levels, so that contributes. I want to say also that the declining statewide enrollment will partially offset the growth. So we see it declining in many areas, the enrollment, but we also have some good news that we heard about growth. So we're looking to see what that looks like. The projected growth of the 3.6% in Prop 98, which is the COLA, for 2019-20 is moderate, given that the California index is higher than that particular index. So when they fund us, they use the lower index number. California, as we heard, 5th in earnings and 41st in funding in education. And then LEAs, our local education agencies, will continue to look at budget challenges because this, we know last year was the last year where we saw an increase in LCFF. And the prediction, although it changes every year, is that we will continue to have the COLA as the determinant of how much we go up, and we are not certain about any one-time money this year. And there's, rumors out there, but we don't know about that. So then lastly, accountability will continue to remain a priority as the dashboard and other metrics evolve, and there's still this push and pull from groups that really want to go back to the categorical budgets because then they were guaranteed that, and the flexibility is uncomfortable in some ways, and in some ways there have been accusations of abuse of having a more flexible method. But for the most part, as we increase accountability, we're not necessarily seeing that we will leave LCFF because there was such a smooth transition from Brown to Newsom. So I think that will remain. So looking at the highlights, this is 1920 again, and it's proposed. They will vote on it hopefully by June 30th. And we know that, then we start to do our implementation in the August time. It's a moderate increase compared to last year, COLA, so we have estimated 0.89 in 1920 as an increase for that total again of 3.6, and a 1.03 reduction to the STRS. This is really good news. This is something that was unexpected. It shows that the governor has listened to our concern that the pension was thrusted upon the employer, but it was unclear whether who the employer was. The state decided it was us instead of them, and so this is an opportunity to have more funding this year, and hopefully that concept will continue. A 1% reduction to STRS pension rate in 2021 as well. So we hope to see the percentage increase and it continue. What does it mean for MDUSD? Before the governor's proposed budget, we were crunching our numbers based on just supposition. And so we were projecting a $17 million reduction. We had it in our budgets for the last few years. We knew that as we reduced the reserve that it often was going into funding people in positions, and that ongoing sustainability would dip under, and we were working with the process of attrition to try and even it out in the third and following years. So we initially projected 17 million, and in December we did present the first interim report, which identified the reductions of the need of that reduction in 1920 in order to maintain positive certification. After the governor's proposed budget for 1920, the district revised the projected reduction to 12 million in 1920 and a $5 million relief, but reductions in 2021 are still projected at 7.7. And so there are a lot of factors that play into this, but this is we started with a worst case scenario. We now are seeing some relief, and then we are also going to discuss other things that we're doing to address this. I think I'm taking the good part from Rose, I must admit. So I will share that some of the things, what it means for MDUSD. What we're looking at is state revenue increases do not necessarily fully fund our current expenditure increases. Number two, salaries and benefits account for 88.9% of the district's budget. That's not out of the ordinary. In fact, we've seen it go up to 92, 93 in some other districts. Those are districts that are currently in trouble, but we have seen it go up that high. Rising pension costs, step and column increases, and these are all the same things, but these are certainly concerns. Special ed cost increases and declining enrollment ranging 1 to 1.5%. Approximates a cost of $3 million for every 1%. And so with the next slide, if I could ask Rose Ramos, our CBO, to kind of come up, and I can certainly, while she's coming up, share just before we get to the chart she's going to present on full-time equivalents. I know you're all veterans of this, but for community members, this equals a full-time position. However, it does not equal the number of employees that we have. So just want to clarify that because we have many people who have part-time positions. So when we reference FTEs, we are referring to the number of full-time positions. And some of the things that we are looking at as well that we're still getting the clarified numbers, but we have good estimates. We do anticipate that our free and reduced numbers of students has gone in the last 5 years from 49% to 40%. And there are a lot of guesses about that. One is that particularly with our older students, they do not want to fill out cards. Also, we have feedback from families, they do not want to fill out federal cards, and that they're concerned about privacy and immigration status, etc. But that's a big drop, and so that did greatly impact our schools. So the anticipated reduction I think we saw was about 500,000 in Title I. So that's a big drop. We're still looking at our other title programs and to see how we do with our federal programs, but we won't. It's all based on last year, so we do have a good idea. So with that, if I could ask Rose to speak to some of the rest of the slides, and then I'll speak to the last one.
Absolutely. Good evening, President Durkee, board members, Dr. Meyer, members of the public. Okay, this slide, I'm going to put my glasses on because those numbers are really small up there. This one really tells a picture of what's happening in terms of the expense increases and the revenue increases. So comparing those two, without even talking about it, the first two columns there, that was in the beginning of the, thank you, Joe, of the LCFF full implementation. And this is a statewide slide, by the way. It's an average. This came from school services, so it's not basically our information directly, but it kind of tells a picture for us as well. So the first two was the idea when LCFF was fully implemented that first year. We should have seen a nice big difference in terms of our revenue increase compared to our expense increases. So the green, that neon green and the blue would have been all the LCFF at 100%. The column right over would have been our expense increases that we've been talking about, like the pension costs, step-in column, and special ed. Now special ed has a question mark because those are pretty unpredictable. We budget for them based on what we've done in the past, but things can happen and that number can change, most likely up rather than down, although we tried very, very hard to controlling those expenses. So in our case, because we were declining in enrollment, these first two columns didn't really represent us. We were not, it had our enrollment at least been stable, it might have been the case, but we weren't able to take advantage of that 100% implementation in terms of a real revenue growth compared to expenses. So ours was a little bit different. It wasn't as drastic. When we get into the future years, as you start to see that the revenue increases start to decline compared to the expense increases, and for us that's a little bit accelerated. So because of our continued decline, so it compounds. And of course the expenses that continue to increase, those are built on the prior year expenses, so that increases even more for us. For example, step-in column builds in the prior year, and any percent increases that we add to ongoing costs continue to increase as well, a little bit at a faster pace. So, without explaining too much, this basically tells what's happening to many of our districts statewide. We're not alone, we're in the same boat. Some of us are worse off, unfortunately, than others. And this is why many districts have those large ending fund balances, which create lots of conversations and questions about why we're hanging on to so much money and there's so much need in the district. It's because we need to make sure we have enough funds so that we can support our expenses in those years where our revenue is just not sufficient. And that's been our case pretty much for the last few years when we talk about the deficit. So there's two things that we're talking about. The deficit, where your revenues are not enough to pay your current bills, and then the other thing is your required reserve. We went from a 2 to a 3%, so we have to save for two things. And so that's why we have the large ending fund balance, because our budget is pretty large at $350 million. It's not a small amount. So, and you'll see in future slides that come up, you'll see how much our reserves were in earlier years compared to now. And we've been using them for that intended purpose.
And so we get to a point where our reserves get to be pretty low, and so we have to plan for what are we going to do to shore that up so that we can pay for our obligations and we can meet that 3% required reserve. So that's where we really have to start right-sizing or adjusting our expenses where we can. Okay, so the next slide is, and this is another really great slide that tells the picture of what's happening. So in addition to our regular K-12 expenses that we have that are increasing and the revenue that doesn't cover those costs, we have the cost of doing business, which is the CPI index that measures the cost of goods and services. We, like other organizations, regardless if we're K-12, we have to buy paper, we have to buy fuel, we have to pay our electricity bills, and so those costs go up. And so this is the rate of those costs going up, which is the bottom bar, this California CPI. And then the top bar, the top part to that table is the COLA. That's what we're projected to get from the state in terms of our revenue increases. And just looking at that without even having to do the math, you'll see the difference. It's, you know, we're not getting enough in our COLA to even sustain those costs, much less the other costs that we just seen in the previous chart. So, and the very last column there is the compounded effect of that statutory COLA over time compared to the CPI. So, yep. That's another one there. And I think
one of the things that we've been talking about with principals and with schools and with others is just making sure that as we do look at any kind of savings or tightening of our belts, that we do continue to consider the classrooms first and where the students are as our primary mission. So we have included, you know, staffing. We have a very strong staff, and we've invested a lot, and they've invested a lot in us. Materials that we have for our classrooms, and then also our facilities. We have different funding streams for these three things, but they are definitely things that we want to sustain. And then also looking at our district priorities, we can't say enough how important our school services are. So we're going to have to look at them and say, you know, are we funding the classrooms with teaching, counseling, nursing, library support, visual performing arts support, athletics and sports, after school programs, college and career prep. So these are the things that we've continually funded over the last years. And if there are things that you think of as you're looking at this outside of what we've listed as we continue to talk about our priorities, please, let's have that conversation. But we're really honing in on how do we support that student's learning.
Okay, and so this slide kind of translates some of those large numbers that we've been talking about. What does it really mean to us specifically? So how do the 3 million, the 5 million relate to our budget? So the 3 million was the ADA decline. We lose approximately that for every 1%. So what does that mean in terms of staffing? Well, that would fund 35.7 certificated staff. It would fund 54.54 classified FTE. It's equal to oil, fuel, and tire supplies for all of our district buses for 3 years. So it's not a small amount for our budget. The $5 million, that's the relief that, you know, our governor is proposing. It's not a done deal yet. That's the average annual cost of one of our elementary schools on average. It is the annual cost of all of our utility expenses district-wide, or it is half of the 3%, the 10.8 million roughly required reserve that we have to satisfy. So just so we know the impact of those numbers and how, yeah, they have a great impact to our budget. And this is just a historical chart taken from CDE's website. This is the CBEDS enrollment over time, just so you can see how we've been talking about that decline, and that is yeah, really impacting our budget because that's loss of revenue. And here's some more.
Can I ask a question on that chart?
Sure.
Just for the general public. There was a big jump between 2011-12 and 12-13. Was there anything specific that led to a change? Drop that led to that big drop in district enrollment?
The charter schools.
Clayton Valley Charter School was 1,900 students.
Clayton Valley Charter School opened that year?
And and this is data specific again to our district, is to show you our enrollment and our staffing over these last 4 years as well, 3 years including the budget year. So you'll see our enrollment decline, and we have an asterisk mark to mean that the source was CBEDS, and then of course our last line there is our projected budget. And you may see enrollment numbers. It gets a little confusing, but I have to explain this. Sometimes they look different on different charts depending on where you're getting your information. They're all accurate. Some are the CBEDS numbers that have not yet been certified, and I don't want to get too much into the detail and confuse anyone, but the state is behind probably about 2 years, so our 17-18 data will not be officially certified until February, which is next month, and so that you may see that number change again. And so what we do in the budget side of the house to be conservative is we use our projections, which are a little more conservative, just to make sure that we're not counting revenue that we may not get. So for purposes, right now we included the same numbers that are in CBEDS for 15-16, 16-17. Those will not change. Those have already been certified, but 17-18, we'll see that certification come out in February.
Sure. For this information, where do supervisors fall into? Are they included in the classified group?
Yes, let me confirm. We did include everybody in the FTE count, correct? Did we?
So my understanding is that certificated managers are in the certificated side, and then classified managers would be in the classified.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question, let's see if I'm reading this right. So in 2015-16, we had enrollment of just over 32,000, and we had 1,881, about maybe 18, we didn't have a partial person, so 1,882 certificated staff. We've dropped 2,000 students, but we've upped our certificated staff. Is that what that's saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
And, so these are full-time equivalents though, right? I mean, is that, they're not bodies, they're.
Correct.
So if you had 2 half-time people, that would be the equivalent of 1 FTE.
Correct.
And this is FTE.
Yes. So these are some of our proposed budget solutions. Of course, we've talked about this quite a bit, aligning our expenses to the decline in enrollment, which includes staffing, materials, supplies, professional development, professional services, maximizing our grant opportunities where we can. We've been hearing about going out and looking for funding to sustain our programs or increase them where we can. Strategies to increase enrollment. We do know we have competition, it's just a fact, and so what are we doing to really market ourselves and try to bring back our students in this area? Reducing our current year expenses, and when we say current year, we mean this year now. We know that any money we save this year just falls into our ending fund balance, which means it falls into our savings account, and so that becomes our new beginning balance for the new year. And so any amount would help reduce that amount that we have to cut in the future year. And that includes looking at all the items like vacancies, staffing, overtime, supplies, professional development, all of those categories. Nothing's off the table for review. Some other budget solutions, redistributing current resources to make the most benefit for students in the classroom. And this is looking at what are we doing with our current resources, and are we using them to the best of its ability and maximizing that resources, meaning if there's items that we don't really, that are an essential, but maybe it's a supply that we can forego in exchange for maintaining staff, for example. So we're looking at those big categories. And attrition, maybe it is that we'll be fortunate enough to have the right number of attrition so that we don't have to issue any kind of reduction notices. And then focusing on centrally provided services. And Dr. Mark, do you want to speak on that one? That one was
focusing centrally, yes. One of the things that we're looking at, we have, as we've discussed here, we have a small number of district initiatives, and what we want to do is we want to make sure And speaking to the instructional initiatives, for example, we know that we're looking at AVID and we're having that as a district-wide strategy. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting that, we're looking at that as a strategy. Also, we're looking at International Baccalaureate, magnet programs, College Now. We have some things that we've brought forward. But when we say focusing district initiatives, that means we're probably not in a place where we were before, where we can pilot a lot of different things or even start up a new initiative, because we have limited resources, including manpower. So we want to make sure that we're doing the few things that we're doing well, as opposed to kind of spreading ourselves out. We don't want to say that schools can't try new things or look at innovative ways of teaching and learning. However, as far as district-wide initiatives that we're looking at supporting, we're looking to hone those and focus them.
And we already talked a little bit about rethinking current allocations for all the categories, just to make sure that we're really allocating exactly what we need. And oh boy, this is really small. This is the one, the history on the ending fund balance. And what we did was we just provided you with this spreadsheet just so you can see the impact of the revenue imbalance with our expenses and the impact that it's had on our ending fund balance. So we presented the information going back to 2015-16 because that was one of the periods where we had a very high ending fund balance. It was as high as $98 million. But a lot of that money was due to one-time resources that had been shored up, and it was due to the LCFF gap, the funding gap, which was a little bit more accelerated and it was higher and it had a bigger impact on the district. But all of those were one-time funds. And then in addition to that, we also had some salary improvements after that time. So those couple of things did contribute to the decline. So you'll see that it went down 16-17. For those of you that can't see it, it went down from the previous year of 98 million down to 88.7, and 17-18 went down to 57. And what happened in 16-17 and 17-18 were the salary improvements combined of 9% ongoing. So 6% one year and 3% in the next year. And of course, those were not just one-time improvements; they were ongoing. And then in 18-19, we're projecting that to be our ending fund balance to be $27 million, and then in 2021, 36. Now we have two tables that we're showing here. The top table is based on what we knew at first interim. That's what you all saw when we presented. The second table on the bottom is assuming that the governor's current proposed budget happens. This is what our ending fund balance would be projected to be, which is a lot better, of course, and that's what we've been saying. So, and as Dr. Meyer mentioned in one of her earlier slides, what does this mean for us as the district? It just means that $17 million reduction we thought we were going to have to take, we may not have to take as much. We may have to just take about $12 million should this happen. And of course, this is based on numbers that we know right now. As we know, lots of things are going to happen between now and year end. We've got to close the books and they have to negotiate the budget. We really don't know what that's going to happen, but that's the information we have to work with. So, and I just repeat that so that people don't get surprised when numbers change and they're like, oh, you said this and now it's this. Well, it depends on what the state actually does. So,
the analogy I think of is it's like your house payment. The more you can pay on for this year, the more that we can save this year, the better off we will be next year. So we are looking at as the money we know carries over and goes into the beginning balance, we want to make sure that we more tightly align that funding for next year, but also keep track of it in the current year.
In the meantime, if your car dies, then you're thrown all off track anyway.
That's right. Yeah. Can I ask a question on that chart right there? Sure. So in the final year of the right-hand side of the chart, you've got the totals going back up again. So we were gradually spending down our reserves over time, but then there's an improvement between 1920 and 2021.
That's correct. And the reason for that is because we factor in the COLA towards the end, and we're starting to decline a little bit in our declining enrollment. So that's starting to level off a little. So we're starting to see a little bit improvement of our revenue. And then we're assuming that we are going to make the reductions that we said we're going to make because we have to sustain the out years. We're still not flush. Our revenue that we're projecting for the out years is still not sufficient to satisfy our expenditures, so we still have to plan for those out years. Once we finish this budget year and we start planning for the new year, we have to start planning for that next third year out, which would be 21, 22. So we always have to be forecasting far enough to make sure we have enough. Yep, so.
I have a question. If it's possible to go to back to slide 14, which was the district fiscal data, staffing and enrollment. Yes. So, I recognize that the numbers are do increase for the certificated staff, but I'm wondering if these items contribute to that increase. TK, reduced class size implementation, and the opening of Holbrook.
I'm sure they did. If those were additions, if we did not, I was here at that time, but I'm assuming,
Yes.
yeah, right. Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. And the increase is about 90 FTE. It was getting to the 24-to-1 as close as we could. We were getting towards there. It was the increase in Holbrook, again, because we didn't increase enrollment. We just opened another school, so they took those students from other schools. And then also, that's when we were focusing on counselors as well. So those were initiatives that the district was either needed to do, like K-3, or we chose to do. So that's, in that year is when we did an increase in those positions.
Thank you. There's always more to the story.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. Okay, budget development and planning. Would you like us to continue here?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
all right, and I'm going to turn it over to Mika. She is our budget director, and this is her area.
Hi. So budget development, actually it started back in at the end of December. We sent out the information to school sites so that they have some time to look through and analyze and work on their budget. So today I started meeting with schools, actually met with 5 schools today, and throughout February we will meet with schools and plan their budget, and after that we are gonna start working with departmental budget.
Can you change the slides for you?
So budget planning and development is actually like whole year. As school year starts, they still need to review and re-evaluate their budget, and the budget is keep changing. And actual budget development for the following year starts for us like this December, like I said, and it's gonna keep going until June. And thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. So first we have the discretionary money that is based on the enrollment, and of course we have LCFF supplemental that is based on the unduplicated count, and a Title I projection, and we will have a school budget based on the free and reduced count, and so forth. And they will be aligning the FTEs, teacher FTE and staffing classified employee too, based on the enrollment projection. And any new information that principal has, which might be a little different, then they will have some deeper conversation with assistant soups. And May, we are going to have governor's May revision. There we will have a little more updated information. Then finally we can kind of finalize the adopted budget. So budget development, like I said, is budgeting for unrestricted fund, a federal fund, state fund, which can be CTIG to CPA, California Partnership Academy, to local fund like CDBG that we talked about. All those will be put together, and we will do our best estimate. And when we put together, that will be June, and we have more detailed information, and we will do the presentation to the board.
And some of these are the different types of resources that our schools receive and our district receives, and there's quite a few there. And for the different needs, as you'll see, different categories, as Mika was saying. So we go through all those allocations. Many of them are based on enrollment by the sites or based on qualifying. So they're not all exactly identical from site to site. So they vary based on needs. And as Mika said, this is the development allocation process. These are all the different components that we look at as we're allocating and building the budget. The unrestricted for our pupil base, our LCFF supplemental, restricted state grants, the federal grants, the local ones, and local donations. And guidelines and flexibilities. The schools do have the flexibility to implement budgets that meet some of their unique needs. They do receive their discretionary money and any other site allocations that they're entitled to, and they work with their stakeholders in developing their site plans. And they're encouraged to consider all available resources so that they build their budgets, and we try to offer them as much support and suggestions and guidelines as possible. And so of course there is some flexibility for some resources and not so much for others. And they understand that they receive, like Mika said, they receive a pretty nice package in December to start building that budget. And then the budget department does meet with each school site, each administrator, to help develop that budget from the beginning, and they monitor all year long, and they're available to go out, or they can come here for additional resources and assistance.
Question on that?
Sure.
So, things like librarians or counselors or campus supervisors, are those determined at the school level where they write it into their school plan, or is there a set formula at the district level that determines how many counselors or librarians or campus supervisors a given site receives?
Yeah, it's both. It's both. We do have some formulas. We provide base, just like we provide for staffing, other staffing for this, our certificated staffing and the classified staffing. And then those sites that do receive additional support through Title I, whatever other resource, with their site councils, they may decide that their school needs or would benefit, and please jump in. But I don't understand the program site sometimes too much, how they come to those decisions, but I know that it's with their site council to supplement a service or another area of staffing. For example, they may add another noon supervisor because they may feel that they just need more on their campus, or they may add another counselor with their site fund. So they have that discretion to do this. Was that what you were? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So lastly, some of the things that we're going to do, and we would like you to consider, but we're going to look at community services and really see how, particularly healthcare, that kind of thing, but we're going to make sure that we're calibrated with available community services. So that's one of the places we're going to look. We're also going to continue to benchmark with other districts in the county, in the state, and we're going to just get a sense of where we need to consider to look for both extra supports and what kind of things, as we're looking at research into what works best in classrooms. And then also we are going to seek input on budget solutions in a variety of ways, and some of them are listed here. School site meetings, budget advisory committee, parent advisory committees. Student input, and that was a real valuable part last time when we were looking and developing the LCAP. The students really spoke clearly to what they felt was a strong need on their campuses, and that was a big help as we were making decisions. And then business partners, to the degree that they can help either supplement or guide into needs that we'll need for the future students that they would be hiring. So all of these are different ways that we are going to continue to look at the budget, and then we also are looking, once again I'll repeat, of important measures this year, so we can see, are we focused on the things that we want to focus on? Are we aligned where we need to be aligned? So those savings perhaps could then become part of a larger beginning balance. Thank you.
Can I ask another question? One more budget question. So this is actually not from the presentation itself, it's just from the budget overall. Let's see, I can point you to. So page 26 has the summary of unrestricted and restricted numbers. And in books and supplies, it shows that from June, our original budget was 12 million, and the board approved budget that we voted on in December is now 24 million. So a $12 million increase in the books and supplies line item. Is that an area that we plan to spend 24 million? Was that done because we have a plan of books and supplies we're planning to purchase, or?
So the increase of 12 million is from the carryovers. 2 million is about from unrestricted side, and that is actually school side carryovers, because departmental budget doesn't carry over. And those are mainly from donations or parent money, actually, because in prior years we have we put those field trips money or donation money into unrestricted fund. So which is different starting this year, but that carryover is actually from departmental account and grade level account. Is mainly unrestricted fund carryover. And the restricted side is like Title I, which is again school side carryover, something that didn't get spent, we will redistribute to school side. And many of them were like facility related carryover or maintenance, like routine restricted maintenance carryover. And also CTIG, career take education.
Okay, we know we're in technical education and
I'm nervous. Yeah. Those things, or health and safety carryover, which is facility again. That 12 million is coming from the carryover, and most of it is facility or school site budget.
Any more questions?
I would just ask if you would consider questions that you may have. Perhaps there's something within this presentation that you have a future interest in knowing more about. And then also what we can do then is that we can then bring back information and continue to have this discussion. We're really at the very beginning of this proposal and seeing the impacts that it will have on the district. But if there are different areas that you'd like to look further into and have more specifics on, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank Dr. Meyer and the great team. Always does such a great job. It's important, and I appreciate. I think it was a really thoughtful. I know you were worried about how dense it was, but a really thoughtful, comprehensive presentation, which is a good place to start for sure. And as Dr. Meyer is saying, is when we, continue to talk about it and think about the challenge that we have going forward. But thank you very much.
And just to answer your question, one of the things that was mentioned in the slide was benchmarking with other districts. As you collect that data, if you could share that with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 18.2, which is the Williams Quarterly Report. Gonna make a motion, or do you want to ask questions? I'll make a motion.
I do have one question.
So
I'll ask questions.
So do you do a motion first? Madam President, I would move that the board approve the Williams Quarterly Report for January 31st, 2019.
Second that?
Quick question. It says that there was a facilities complaint at YV High School and it was resolved. I was just curious what that facilities complaint was and how it was resolved.
Richard is working on a project right now. It was for, someone reported that the bleachers appeared to be unsafe, and it was creating some kind of a barrier. And Richard went out and resolved it and showed that DSA had approved it. As you know, at our school sites, major projects like that, they have to undergo a very extensive review and approval by DSA before they're allowed to be used. And so once he presented that information and explained the whole structure, it was resolved.
There was a concern that the egress was not accessible and that there was a log jam as you're leaving an event.
Okay, we have a first and a second. If there's no further questions, we'll call for the vote. And that passes 4001. Thank you. Okay, the next one is 18.3, Board of Education Committee assignments. So I do want to say something first. That thank you for everybody who sent in their interest and for prioritizing. It was very helpful. And I was able to give everybody their first and second choice, for sure, at a minimum. And Mr. Lawrence has been very clear that he is, challenged with making, many of these committees. So I was trying to be sensitive to that as well. And I wanted to put you on the spot a little bit, Ms. Mayo, because you had in your information you sent me, you talked about, in particular, this PTA, and I didn't follow up with you offline, but I thought maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that. I just put your name down, but I know you have an official role there, and so it creates an opportunity for a board member to participate as a board rep. Is that what you were saying? Yeah.
Well, I was indicating I am secretary for the Mount Diablo Council of PTAs currently. I don't know if I will hold a PTA elected position, but I know that additional members from the board would be welcome to attend these meetings. There are 4 association meetings a year, and then I attend the monthly executive board meetings as well. So, and then I also attend district PTA meetings. But if anyone wanted to join me at those meetings, then you'd be welcome.
So the 4 that you're talking about, mainly the 4, yeah.
You wouldn't be able to vote on business unless
Right.
you represent one of the PTA schools, but you could be engaged in the dialogue and hear the reports and sharing that happens at each one of those meetings.
Okay, that did sound interesting to me. So maybe you can help us know exactly when those are. Okay, that would be great. So, okay. So I just wanted to explain my thinking behind this chart, and if hopefully everyone's okay with it, and we can entertain a motion.
Madam President, I would move that the board approve the I'll say ratify the chair's appointments to committees.
Second?
Okay. Are there any other comments or wishes or anything? Okay. First and a second. We'll call for the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time and effort you put into making this work.
It's not easy. No, it's a puzzle. Oh, yeah. Did you miss something?
Mrs. Durkee, can you please share who seconded the motion?
Sharice Count.
Sharice Count. Sorry. Okay, and that passes 4001. Thank you very much. And we don't need a meeting extension, and I don't know that we have any documents. I don't think so. And so we will be adjourned. Thank you.